welcome back to Talking Shop in the Shop. I'm your host, Frank Gucciardo, Executive Director at orderplans.com, a division of PKAD Architecture and Design. So we want to welcome you in here to this next episode, and we've got a great guest who traveled quite the distance to get to us from East Hampton, Sarah Minardi of Saunders and Associates. You're a associate real estate broker,
correct?
Right?
Yes,
I'm East Hampton.
I'm out of the East Hampton office. Right. Yes, Saunders and Associates has 5 different offices on the East End from Montauk to West Hampton. So we are Hampton-centric, born and raised, and just like me. So
gotcha.
Here we are.
Oh, so you're local. You're local to East Hampton.
Yeah. I am.
Yeah.
My parents before me. So I feel very fortunate to live full time with my family in East Hampton and pinch myself. But it's really a gift.
Yeah, that's great.
It's wonderful.
That's great. And you know, so we're recording. You know, we're here today at the invitation of the owners here at Salt and Barrel. In downtown Bayshore, yeah. So this is a great place. It's really lively on happy hours. But you drove all the way from East Hampton, and I
did.
And so
I
here,
did it for you, Frank.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And because I remember the pain. I grew up in Islip, and I used to commute 3 days a week to go play for the Sharks, the rugby team out of East Hampton, in back of Main Street. So
right on Herrick Park.
Yeah, 67 miles out, 67 miles back, and then they pick me up off the LIE to away games and whatnot. So it's cool. It's cool. And I wanted to have you in here because, you know, our firm, we've been out in the Hamptons a lot scanning and measuring existing conditions for some of the boutique firms out east. And we met on a property that was being transacted.
Yes, it was a property that I had the listing for. It was under contract, beautiful 1.25 acre property with a house. That somebody was looking to do more with, or
new owner was coming in, right?
New owner coming in, wanted to gut renovate. Beautiful property in Watermill North, so that's how we made the connection.
Yeah. And it was an interesting overlap on some new laws that we'll talk about today. And, And so, so born and bred, you're in the heart of East Hampton. So you know, give us a little snapshot of what does the market look like out there now, and you know, where do you sort of, you know, your sort of area of expertise?
Of course. Well, I came into the business in late of 2007, just as everything was going down the tubes with the mortgage industry. So great time to learn. I started in 2007, and with Corcoran, and I moved over to Saunders and Associates in 2009, which it was only open for a year before I went over. So
ground level,
and we at that time we had one office in Bridgehampton, and now we're West Hampton, Southampton, Bridgehampton, East Hampton, and Montauk. So very Hampton-centric, as I said. With our tentacles out in New York City and Florida and all over the place. So it's a wonderful firm to work with and very collaborative. So I love that. And being that I'm from East Hampton particularly, I've always been so enamored with the area, with the landscape, with the real estate. And it's kind of something that just fell into my lap, and it's worked out wonderfully. You know, I've seen the ebbs and flows. Like I said, I started in 2007 when the market was down the tubes, and just saw it creep up. You know, 2019 was probably one of my worst years ever, and then boom, COVID. We get this completely abnormal market. Everybody racing out of New York. It was really just such a phenomenon. We couldn't believe it, and we went from something like 9 years of inventory to nothing. Because nobody was renting. You know, nobody was renting their homes who had in the past. People were looking to get out of the city. They wanted to rent, and then looked at the interest rates and looked at all the inventory available to purchase. So they said, "I'll buy. Forget renting. I'm going to buy." So you know, we dealt with that for a good 2 years, and we're since I would say March of 2020, we've been kind of in this stagnant phase, but it's reaching out, and we're seeing excellent activity both in the sale market and in the rental market for 2024, which is extremely encouraging.
And you'll go up through Sag Harbor.
Oh yes.
All the way across the, you'll go across into Shelter Island.
Of course, yes.
So that whole sort of
I do
South Fork hub.
Yep, Montauk to Southampton, Sag Harbor, and over to Shelter Island.
Right.
So I do it all and love it. I mean, it's so terrific. But we're, with the multi-million-dollar properties that I've rented and sold and represented, we're seeing great activity. So a lot of people calling.
And it's helpful that, and it must be imperative almost that you're a local, because you have a real finger on the pulse.
It's a plus. I'm not going to lie. It's definitely a plus. But for anyone getting into the business, it's all about getting the groundwork. You could be from anywhere. I really made it a point early on in my career to be humble about the fact that, yes, I'm from here, but there are plenty of sellers and buyers and landlords and tenants who have relationships with other real estate agents already. So, I really had to, dig in and put myself out there, which has worked well for me over the years.
That's great. Yeah. So let's just talk maybe a little bit about timing.
Yes.
Because on the architectural side, we talk to homeowners, and they're, at the time of this recording, we're somewhere at the end of January, right?
Right. Here we are.
And people think that things happen
in a vacuum.
I'm trying to put this properly, right? In a delicate way.
Right.
The time of that the things, the transactional time frames.
Yes.
Are, in my experience, and you tell me if it's the same for you. The homeowners think it happens like this, when in reality it happens like this.
Exactly. And buyers do the same thing.
Yeah.
They do the same thing.
Right. So the homeowner, whether you're buying or selling, let's just help them understand maybe a little bit about what is realistic time frames. So you want to rent your property, you want to look at a purchase. I mean, talk about a typical.
I would say a realistic time frame from start to finish with a purchase is somewhere around 60 days from the fully executed contract. So we're talking about a sale. That's the general time frame. However, there are many things that could come into play that could throw a monkey wrench into that.
So that's clean paper signing off back
Completely.
forth. 60 days in a vacuum.
Completely.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So,
It's very rare that something happens in 30 days. It would need to be all cash. There needs to be the title report coming back clean. There should be no issues on the survey, et cetera. So we do see that from time to time. Normally with the upper scale, we're talking over 20 million, something along those lines.
Right.
Those usually happen pretty quickly.
Right.
Because mainly those sellers and those buyers have all their ducks in a row.
Correct.
What sellers should know, or which owners should know if they're ever going to be putting their house on the market, is there are things that they need to do in advance of actually just throwing it out there.
I was going to say, let's just dial that back for 1 second. So you landed on two spots that. So you have 60 days in a vacuum. That's perfect.
Yeah.
But then you have the title report, and then you said you have the
survey.
The survey.
Yep.
So let's first talk about. Let's just talk to the the general broad 4-inch brush to everybody in the space that might be looking to buy or sell.
Right.
So when we say title, talk about dig down a little bit deeper on title. What does that mean?
Sure. So the title report, any buyer that is going to be purchasing a house needs to get title insurance. It's a requirement of New York State. So they want to make sure that the CNRs and various things about the property. There's
CNRs.
Yes.
So tell what's
covenants and restrictions.
Covenants and restrictions.
So they want to make sure that there aren't any odd covenants and restrictions that maybe this property or home or whatnot didn't play into correctly.
Right.
They want to make sure that there's no that the chain and title is accurate. There's no cloud on title. If there's a fence coming onto the property from a neighbor's contingent property, next door property. If a driveway veers one way or another, if there's certain things on the property that need to be cleared up, so there is no cloud on title, those all come about. And a lot of that has to do also with getting an updated survey.
Right.
And the survey will map out exactly what's on the property as it is. Now, owners can say, well, I have my certificate of occupancy from 2004, and here was the survey that was done there. Well, maybe they added a patio, maybe they did other things, maybe they cleared more.
Right.
In East Hampton Town, Southampton Town, all of the Hamptons, there's a real push to make sure that properties are not overcleared and are in compliance.
Let's dig down on that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So clearing,
What does it mean to clear? Clear what? What are they clearing?
What we're talking about is you have a particularly sized property, say it's an acre, and you are allowed to clear on that property, I would say generally speaking, 25% plus another 10,000 square feet, whatever that adds up to. I was an English major. I'm not a math major.
Okay.
But I can rattle
Gotcha.
off some numbers. So that is the set amount by, say, East Hampton Town Code that someone is allowed to clear their property. That means lawn, that means where the house is situated, if there's a garage, if there's pool, there's coverage, all sorts of things. So
they move into a nice wooded lot in Amagansett.
Yes.
Right? Heavy, dense.
Yes.
Right? Lots
north of the highway.
North of the highway.
Yep.
You know, heavy foliage, pine barren type, right? Scrub brush, whatnot.
Right.
And they just can't raise it.
You're not allowed to just take it all down.
Right.
You're not supposed to.
We're not supposed to.
People do, and then they revegetate afterwards.
Okay, right. So that's what the survey is going to look at, right?
Yes, the surveyor is going to look.
In the Hamptons is a
very
little bit
important.
different than in Massapequa.
Of course.
Right? A little bit, a
Completely.
lot bit different.
A lot.
A lot bit different, right?
different.
So just different regions, different requirements,
Yep.
right? So in the Hamptons, East Hampton, you're saying specifically,
Yes.
that we're going to be looking at vegetation lot coverage.
Yes, exactly. So those are things that all need to be in compliance if you're going to go and get an updated certificate of occupancy, whether you're in the villages or in the towns. So the surveyor needs to show the clearing, what's existing, what's permitted.
What's existing, what's permitted.
Right. They need to show the total coverage, what's existing, what's permitted. That is structures, pool, patio, that's total
the
coverage.
Footprint down, looking down,
footprint,
right? We're looking down at the property.
Yep.
They've mapped out the four
Yep.
corners, maybe more, but the four corners, the boundary of the property, and then what's inside that boundary.
Exactly.
And the building is a block.
Yep.
And the decks.
The pool and the deck and
pools,
everything.
right?
So that
Accessory
all
structures.
comes into total coverage. Then there's also building coverage. So that's any kind of roofed structure. So there's going to be a calculation for what's permitted and what's existing. So it's really important in my frame of mind, and what we will talk about in a little bit, for anybody that's looking to get an update to their certificate of occupancy, or they're looking to sell,
Right.
that they get an updated survey in advance of doing all that.
Right.
Because the survey is going to show you all those things.
Right.
And we're going to know exactly what you have, what you're allowed to do, where there are violations in play that need to be rectified.
And if you're looking to sell, you
Yes.
want this to go clean.
Yes.
And you want to have this, so you're going to go through title, you're going to go through survey, you might have an old one, but you're going to, and maybe it came from the last transaction.
Yes.
Maybe it was an old owner,
Completely.
right?
Completely.
Now the life history of the building, towns really don't care about the people sleeping in the bed, they care about the building and the property.
Yes.
It's the life history of this, because, you know, I'm sure the house you lived in probably wasn't built for you. It's probably someone before you.
Right.
The same as mine.
Right.
We're a second owner, right?
Of course.
We're up here in Dix Hills area, and you've got a 1964 built original owner that I bought from, and now I'm the second owner, and then there will be a third owner and a fourth owner.
Maybe you put in a finished basement. Maybe
Correct.
you did an addition.
Correct.
You know, maybe your contractor said, "Oh, I took care of that." We hear a lot of that. So, you know,
pause on that. Okay,
Oh,
hang on.
okay.
We're getting ahead of
You're gonna
ourselves.
hook yourself in.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. So we get the survey. We're gonna look at what now they may have from 2004.
Mm-hmm.
We have it here now 11 years later or 10 years later, and maybe there's no change.
20 years later.
20 years, yeah, right. Oh my God, 20
Here we
years.
are,
Oh
yeah.
my God. So 20 years go by, but maybe the town has something from the 90s.
True.
It's what the town has.
It's true.
It's what the town has.
Yeah, no,
Not the paper that's
homeowner.
being passed around.
Right.
What the town holds is what's
Right,
there.
in the building department.
Correct.
So the building departments for, say, East Hampton Town, East Hampton Village, Southampton Town, et cetera, they have what they have for the house on file. The current homeowner might have gotten an updated survey because they were doing various things, but maybe perhaps that was never properly filed with the town or the village to get the update.
Correct.
So they have to retroactively go back, pay for those permits, get those things legalized.
Maintain, right? Maintain
All
and legalize
it's
existing
all about
conditions.
legalizing.
Right.
Yes.
So there may be this wrinkle where the town has something that's different than what you have on record, and you get a new one, and it has to line up. But eventually, you're going to be able to look at Survey A and Survey B and say,
and walk the property.
Is there new markings on this?
Right.
And that's different. That
Right.
doesn't have a CO attached to it.
Right.
Right. So So you have something you could visually see. So then let's talk about this, and then we'll get back to the process of COs and where that is. But let's talk about this new law that's on the books as of Jan 1, 2024.
As of January 1, as of January 1st in East Hampton Town passed a new local law regarding certificate of occupancy, where anyone that lives in East Hampton Town.
And what is that? Do you know what that?
East Hampton Town, it goes from, it includes Montauk, Amagansett, East Hampton proper, part of Sag Harbor, and Wainscott. So that's all East Hampton Town.
East Hampton Town, right.
Exactly.
Sagaponack?
Sagaponack, Southampton
it's
Town.
Southampton. Okay, so that's kind of on the threshold, right?
Yes, but there's Town Line Road separates Wainscott and Sagaponack.
Got it.
Like Division Street separates Sag Harbor between Southampton Town, East Hampton Town. Anyway.
Gotcha.
It's a little local
knowledge.
You know your stuff, yeah. There's reasons why these streets have names. Division and Town Line.
Town Line.
So what East Hampton passed, and I brought a copy so I can read it to you, is a change to the local law which amends the certificate of occupancy. Now, it used to be in East Hampton Town that you wanted to sell your house as a seller, fine, go ahead, sell your house. You did not have to get an updated certificate of occupancy. You had to have a certificate of occupancy to be able to live in there. But say the house was built in 1972, you've owned it for so long.
Sure.
You haven't updated the certificate of occupancy since owning it. You didn't have to do that when you were selling. What this new local law states is that once title transfers, once the deed goes from one owner to the next owner, the new owner cannot live in that house until there is an update to the C of O. So there has to be a brand new certificate of occupancy issued for somebody to live there.
Tell that to the camera. Say that one more time, right here, right to this one.
Okay. In East Hampton Town, a new local law was passed whereby anyone that wants to sell their house, they're going to sell it to a new owner. That new owner needs to have an update to the certificate of occupancy in place in order to immediately live in that house.
Wow.
Now, the only thing that would be different is if the house is under construction, you can't live in it right away.
Sure, of course.
It's going to happen, but nobody's going and living in sticks and glue.
Right.
So this was the new law that was passed, and it's very interesting because before it was a business decision. A buyer said, you know what? I'm going to add a garage, I'm going to finish the basement, I'm going to do this kind of work, that kind of work. I'm going to wait until all that work is done before I update the certificate of occupancy. That was all a business decision for them. You know, if they were able to get it at a good price, they didn't need to put too much pressure on the seller said, I'm not going to update it, et cetera, then that was what, you know, it was a decision by the buyer to make. And I'd be certain that their attorney would have said, I recommend you get an updated certificate of occupancy, but if this is what you want to do, understood. You know, let's document that. Right. So that is what's in place now. Now that the town has made a requirement that any time a property changes hands, an update to the C of O has to be made, it's not a business decision anymore. So anyone that wants to sell their home, a serious seller, it's of my opinion and many of my colleagues' opinion, both at Saunders and elsewhere, that it really should be the seller that gets the updated survey. It's never been that way. It's always been
how interesting.
The buyer would get, once a deal was struck and the buyer had, everybody had their attorneys, a buyer would get a survey. They would order a survey. It could take anywhere from 2 weeks to 8 weeks.
Right.
I mean, now you're on the timeline. Now we're talking about timeline and why things take longer. So a buyer would get an updated survey to make sure what's on the property is what both the listing says and what the town has on file.
So is the owner going through and foiling, or are you foiling the town for the documents on the property?
So I normally do that. I do that at the onset. Anytime I'm getting a new listing, I always go to the town.
You're going to foil and you're going to grab the CO to see what it has.
I'm going to see exactly what it is.
And then title's going to come back.
Yep.
And you're going to then also have a new survey. This is ideal, right?
Ideal.
New survey comes in, and now you're looking at everything to make sure it's aligned.
Exactly.
And if not, then
the sellers really need to do what they need to do to get things into compliance. So if the property, I have had a few like this, properties overcleared by 5,000 square feet. The new owners, or not the new owners, but the sellers No, they've got to get an update to the C of O. They've got to come into compliance. They need to do a revegetation in order to get the survey to a point where it shows that the clearing is in compliance, in order to get to the point where they can get the updated C of O.
Is this happening pre-listing or it's listed?
Even pre-listing or even during the process.
Right.
So it's one of those things that I speak with sellers about from the onset. That you want to have a clear transaction. You want to make sure that you're not spending a lot of money later on once you find out what really needs to be done, and you're on an attorney's clock with going back and forth with the buyer's attorney. You're paying for that. Better to do as many of these things in advance.
Now it takes time if you have to.
It takes so long.
Right.
And in the wintertime, you're going to get an updated survey. There's snow on the ground.
Snow.
A lot of surveyors are very hesitant to put numbers on surveys until they can see the ground.
Sure.
So that's another delay where we're dealing with timing. You want to sell a house quickly, the
Correct.
more you can do in advance
Right.
of putting that house on the market to make sure that everything is buttoned up,
Right.
the better.
Right. So the property that we met on in Watermill,
Yes.
that was they had a garage that was converted, and now the architect. So we were a professional consultant for the architect of record. So we went out and scanned the property, measured it, modeled it. I'm making assumptions that was all clean. And
that was all clean.
Right.
It was, and honestly, with that property in particular in Watermill, I worked with that owner before we officially listed it. I worked with him for a year.
Yeah.
I worked with him for a year.
Right.
There was a finished lower level that when they purchased the house was there, but it was never on the certificate of occupancy. So he had to put in a deep window well. He had to do electrical underwriter's certificate.
Yep.
He had an expediter to do this work for him, but it took a year.
Right. So it takes. So that's the wrinkle here. So if that, let's say, so whatever was not legal because someone they wanted to finish their basement. Why do I need to? People do stuff.
People do stuff.
But now it's going to impede the transaction.
Exactly.
And this part here where you said you're going to go and secure the CO and pair it up with the survey, but now you say, and let's just say that so now you have a situation. So the expediter is going to do the filing, but you need a set of stamped architecturals that is going to call out either that there is no egress, and we have to have egress, or there needs to be a self-closing door on the boiler or the mechanical room with the proper ventilation and proper...
There's a litany.
Things. Right. So like in our practice, we see this a lot, right? So we have a rapid response division that will go out, scan a property, and then help to close out COs that are dealing with primarily the building structure. But I can tell you that it takes time.
Everything takes time. So it's the more that someone who's a serious seller can do prior to putting the house on the market, the better.
Picking it away.
The better. Even if another thing, I'll walk around a property, I'll meet with a seller, I'll meet with an owner, we're thinking about selling our property. I'll walk a property, is there a buried oil tank? You know what? Get rid of that. There are people that won't even look at a house if there's a buried oil tank. God forbid, what if that oil tank is leaking and then it's an environmental hazard?
I had a client call me on a property in, I want to say, Brookhaven Township, and there were some pictures of a full basement that was half the effort to do this. Because sometimes you see things and you're like, what? How did they get here? Yeah. And there's always a path to get here.
Of course.
But when you walk in on it and you're like, what was somebody thinking here? So I have a full basement with fresh earth dumped halfway up, and then there's an oil tank sticking out of the ground in the basement. Yeah. And she says, is this a problem?
Did they think that earth needed to be around it in the basement?
The whole basement was starting to be filled in, so now it was crawl space height. But the oil tank was, and I said, I don't know about this one. You may want to have it tested first before coming in because the excavation and the clear.
No,
so
it's a
yes,
lot.
I understand. If they see a buried tank.
Yeah, there are people that will completely say, nope, not going to deal with it because they've had issues in the past. But so that's another thing. A buried oil tank, get it out, get it above ground, abandon it, work with an environmental company.
Get your sign off with your copy that it has been legally abandoned.
Get the certificate with the seal.
And
you're in good shape. And then it's not even something that needs to be brought up. The oil tank's in the basement.
Boom, done, clean.
So same with clearing, same with coverage. So there's a lot of different things. Every property is so unique.
Right. And so the 60 days is in a vacuum and it's clean.
Yes.
That's all green lights from your driveway to town hall.
Yep.
And that's usually not a string of green lights.
Right.
Like that's a rare deal.
Right.
We have one light in Dix Hills that everyone in the car looks at each other. Well, we made it through the, because we're always sitting at this light. It's rare that you catch it.
We have that in East Hampton.
Yeah,
too.
right.
Yeah.
So, do you ever run into situations with the new septic laws? Does that ever come up?
Well, septic has always been an interesting thing because anytime I see a property that's listed as 5 bedrooms, I often wonder, is it truly a 5-bedroom house with a 5 bedrooms? Might have 5 bedrooms, might be saying there's 5 bedrooms in that house, but is the septic big enough for 5 bedrooms? Because septic is always attached to bedrooms, not bathrooms.
Say that. Tell that again.
The septic system, your cesspool, is always attached to bedrooms, not bathrooms. You can have as many bathrooms as you want in a house. You're not living in a bathroom. You're living in a bedroom.
They're looking at capacity.
They're looking at capacity.
And they're looking at, and Suffolk County's definition, Suffolk County Department of Health definition of a bedroom is different than your definition of a bedroom.
Sure.
Right? So
Completely.
the media room in the basement is clear with the big screen TV and the stadium seating, and it's the little mini movie theater. It's not a bedroom.
It's not a bedroom.
But Suffolk County Department of Health will consider it a bedroom because it has potential for occupancy. The gym, the finished wine cellar.
Right.
So the bedroom.
I haven't seen it go that extreme.
We had one here in West Hills.
Maybe you did.
That's exactly what happened. Huntington looked at this major renovation. It was a 4-bedroom upstairs, remained a 4-bedroom upstairs. But downstairs they had a 3,000 square foot basement that was chopped up into 7 rooms. They had a game room, they had a salon, they had a this, they had a that. And when it went, it was an 11, they
labeled it as an 11-bedroom house.
11-bedroom house.
Wow.
So it's not up to us.
Right.
It's up to the authority having jurisdiction.
Right.
But to your point on the 5-bedroom.
Right. So it's something that I have been wary of from early in my career because I sold a house in Bridgehampton North to a wonderful family. The listing said it was 6 bedrooms, and the septic was only big enough for 4. We found this out down along the way, and then money had to be held in escrow, and they had to get an update to the septic, and the sellers. It was. And
now the septic systems are not.
The AI
in the ground.
systems,
The AI systems.
Yes.
So we work almost exclusively with Delandro Engineering out of Southampton, and they do, when I need structural, mechanical, or, civil work, septic work, we go right to Paul and Anthony and their crew there. This is not a simple thing.
No, it's not.
This is a complicated process.
It's at least a $50,000 job, at least.
Correct.
And there are grants, at least in East Hampton, Southampton. There are grants associated with the town, with the state. If you're going to go and get an update to your septic, to get a grant, you're not supposed to be adding on and doing that sort of thing. You're just supposed to be doing the civic duty of updating your septic to the new low nitrogen system, which does need somebody to come and check the electric every year. I mean, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of maintenance, there's a lot more involved with these new septic systems.
These are not simple holes in the ground.
No, and then if anyone is, at least in the Hamptons and East Hampton in particular, if you are doing more than a 50% renovation to your house, if you're changing out all the windows, you need to get an update to the septic.
Correct.
It's required.
So if you're adding capacity, meaning the potential for this house to house more people, adding the demand, and let me tell you, firsthand experience. We were in a VRBO at a distance on vacation, and the septic tank was not sized properly. And
you had
visit to the third world,
Good problems.
was not fun.
Yeah.
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 So there is a reason for this,
Yeah.
right? Because if we have 12 people living in the house, right, versus 8, and the septic demand is
it's higher.
right,
higher.
right. So
Right.
But now we're in a transaction where the seller wants to unload the property.
Yes.
And is not really thrilled about a $50,000 upgrade and delays. So there are going to be other things that could be done from a build out standpoint to say, well, maybe we can combine these, instead of maybe we can make some bigger bedrooms by combining some walls or opening things. There's creativity that could happen that you maybe not list. So you got to make a decision. Are we going to list this as a 6-bedroom, or are we going to open up a couple of walls and list it as a 4-bedroom so we can be in compliance?
Right.
And then.
Right.
But these are the things that are going to go back to the CO.
Yeah, and it's important because the C of O will normally, the newer C of Os normally say how many bedrooms. They've gotten really hip to that.
Yes.
Older C of Os just say, a 2-story structure with one kitchen.
Right.
Always the one kitchen.
One kitchen.
You're not in a, you don't have double C of Os on most properties.
Right.
And pool, whatever.
Right.
Shed.
Right.
So, the newer C of Os have gotten very specific and labeling how many bedrooms there are with, 4 bedrooms, none in the basement.
Right.
Things
very clear
specific
about these things.
So again, it's a situation where anyone looking to list their home, sell their home, that is one of the things that I do at the onset. Let's find out exactly what's on file with the building department.
Right.
Let's see what your C of O says.
Right.
I know what you're telling me, but let's see what your C of O says. It's like taxes.
Yeah.
People get breaks in taxes all the time for being full-time homeowners or whatnot, or veterans or STAR or whatever deductions. So whenever anyone says to me, "Oh, these are my taxes," I go, "Thank you. I'm going to double check with the tax assessor's office or the tax receiver's office just to be safe."
Because what happens at town hall rules.
Right.
Not what you say.
Right. Exactly. And there could, like I said,
sometimes there's a gap.
There could be deductions.
Yeah.
So, it's important. It's important to work. If anybody's looking to sell these days, it's always important to work with a real estate agent like myself who knows that stuff and has been around the block and has plenty of stories to tell.
Yeah, because you don't want a deal to fall apart at the 11th hour because of something that could have been avoided. So it's a large transaction. Professionals, teams of professionals are involved, and you identify in my world, right, we go through discovery, and I identify the problems to a project, and then we try to solve them moving forward.
Right.
You're doing the same thing.
Yes.
You're doing discovery.
I'm doing discovery.
On a different type of transaction, moving forward, and then you bring in the appropriate professionals to mitigate those problems.
I usually, what I tend to do is there are wonderful people that I've worked with in the past who have gotten great recommendations from other clients or customers of mine. I'll pass their names along, and then I let the homeowner make the decision.
Choice, right?
But it's so important that homeowners understand that you can't just throw your house on the market and think that
it's just going to
sell and it's going to be easy.
Right.
It's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy.
Right.
I know anyone that's been through it with me, because I'm a hand holder. I'm there right along the way with everyone. They can get so frustrated during the process, but once it's all said and done and that home closes, everybody's happy.
It's like going to, in your case, it's like going to the Hamptons in the rush hour of summer traffic.
Right, good Memorial Day.
Everybody hates the conga line into East Hampton.
Sure.
But when you get to your property, you're thrilled.
You can just breathe out.
And it's all over, and everyone complains about how bad the traffic was. It's the same thing when you go into Jersey and you have to go through Brooklyn on the Bell Parkway.
Sure.
And everybody's miserable until you get there.
Right. And then once you're there,
you forget it.
You breathe out. You're in the place where you want to be, which you dream about all week.
Correct.
You're going for a beach walk. You're doing those things. So,
That's right.
Like I said before, I love where I live. I want other people to experience that.
Sure.
And I've always made a point of doing the groundwork, doing the legwork, giving people as much information as possible so that they're educated about the decisions they need to make in order to move things forward, whether it's selling, whether it's buying.
Right. So. And I think that's great. And I think maybe we should close with this, because this ties to us, ties to you, but it's a long-term thinking. When someone goes through a building project and they just say, they say, well, we'll deal with the permit later because I want it done now. Right?
Yeah.
Or I thought I had a CO.
Oh,
right?
I thought. Yeah, I thought my contractor did all that for me. Right.
Correct.
Right.
So there should be no thinking. Right? There should be a proper process.
Exactly.
So we tell everyone, and I've been at this now for long enough to know that just about any project really should have a permit, and then there should be at the end of this permitted process a certificate of occupancy that you have on record, in hand.
Yep.
And
the town has it too.
And the town has it too.
Want to make sure the town has it.
Right. So we had in a previous episode, we had Anthony Curcio, land use attorney, and we were talking about the same topic. We said that everybody really stays in their own lane. The architect does his job. There's usually an expediter that's handling the property, the document management, the running back and forth to the town, the securing of the paperwork. The builder does their job. They build, right? And so everybody stays in their lane and does their job and has a deliverable. My deliverable is a set of stamped drawings. The builder's deliverable is a approved final product. And the expediter's deliverable is, here's your certificate of occupancy.
Sure.
Boom, boom, boom. Everybody's held accountable. Everyone has a deliverable. Everyone's paid when completed. And then your problems aren't there.
Right.
But this is long-term thinking.
Yeah.
And most folks are short-term.
It is. It is. And it's so important because, like I said, it's going to cost you less money in the long run.
Correct.
Because once you have an agreement to sell your house, whether it's $1 million or $100 million, once you have that agreement and the attorneys are involved and they're going back and forth and then they're discovering things that should have been done or weren't, you're not only paying to have those things done, you're paying for your attorney during the process of it all.
Right.
And what if the buyer says, well, I don't want that company to do that work. I want this company to do that work.
Right.
I had a situation where there was a buried oil tank and the homeowner said, oh, I'll deal with it once I have an agreement for sale. I tried so hard. To get her to take it out before. And of course, we got a deal, went all together, and the buyer said, well, who are you having to do the work? What kind of tank is it? So the buyers got involved and said, well, we want this company to do this work. We don't want that company to do that work.
Disaster.
So it was a back and forth with the attorneys and the costs. And again, please, my future sellers, do the work ahead of time. Get it done. You'll be so happy. It'll cost you less money.
Right.
And it will make that transaction
and
happen it'll happen quicker.
Right. And here's the thing, right? To any homeowner, when you hire a professional, you're doing your due diligence to say, does this professional know their trade? Do they know their craft?
Right.
Listen to them. Once you've decided that this is the right person for me, listen to them.
Right.
Ask questions, absolutely.
We have the expertise.
Right.
We'll be able to guide.
Correct.
I'll
Ask
be
the
able
questions.
to guide.
Check, trust, but verify, yes.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if you tell them to take the tank out,
take the tank out.
Take the tank out. If we're telling you to get a permit, it means get the permit.
Get that updated survey. Show the building coverage lines. Show that the like I said, the clearing. The clearing is so important.
Right.
And look, we're in the end of January here. Nobody's going to be able to do a revegetation
no one's
now.
Planting now. No. That's not happening. No.
Maybe April 1st. Maybe.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But you could have everything staged. You could have everything staged.
You could have everything ready
to go. You could be
to
on
go.
their schedule. You could have everything ready to go. As
Right.
soon as that ground reaches 55 degrees, you're ready to go.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And now these things that we're talking about, whether you live on, Mid-Ocean Drive in Bridgehampton, or you live in Bethpage.
Yes.
The concept is the same.
The concept is the same.
The concept is the same.
It's all related. It's all important. New York State there's so many things that go into selling property in New York State. You have to have the attorneys.
Yeah,
you have to,
three attorneys.
Yep.
3 attorneys.
Yep. You have the bank attorney. You've got, you've got your title closer. There's a lot involved. I hear stories of what happens in other states, and I can't believe it. Escrow state, this, that happens so quickly. But where we are, especially here, especially where I am on the east end of Long Island, every property is unique. We say it's the dirt, the money is in the dirt. The location, you can always change the house, you can never change the location.
Correct.
And there's no exact comp to any home or any property because of just where everything's located.
Correct. And you have a very unique strip of land.
Very
unique. Long Island's a unique strip of land, right?
It is.
It's
glacial remains.
Yeah, you're right. You've got 5 million people from Brooklyn to Montauk,
right,
packed into a landmass that's what, 170 miles long by 30 miles wide.
And it gets.
And then as you get to the end,
it gets thinner as you get out.
Tiny little tight,
yeah.
and there is so much packed into there.
There is.
With regulations and.
Yep. So that's why it's the big thing with clearing is it's all about water. It's all about water, having clean drinking water, clean water. You get out into the northwest woods of East Hampton, you get out into Sag Harbor, the more wooded areas. There are water protection overlays that are in process where you're not allowed to clear 25% plus 10,000 square feet. You're allowed to clear 12.5% plus whatever. So it gets more and more restrictive. You might have a 5 acre piece of property, but you can only clear an acre of it.
We're a part of a larger team on a development on Shelter Island right now.
Ah, beautiful.
And
so
it's
beautiful.
gorgeous, right? Big lot. Their property ends. There's the road, and then there's the water. And the buildable lot is like this. So the lead so we're
and you got the water, so you have to be there.
Well, then there's wetlands.
And
so there are probably
lots of restrictions.
There's probably 9 professionals touching this, right? We're not the lead architect,
right?
Thank God. We're in support of the lead architect on this one, but we had to manipulate the site to fit so that variances weren't required. And you want to talk about jumping through flaming hoops. This is the one. Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into this.
So much.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this.
And land is dwindling by the day. I mean, on the east end of Long Island, or the five towns of the East End, we have something called the Community Preservation Fund tax.
Yep.
And that's East Hampton Town, Southampton Town, Town of Southold, Shelter Island, and Riverhead. And anyone that buys property, whether it's an improved piece of property with a house or it's vacant land, they have to pay this tax at closing. The buyers have to pay it. It was jumped up in at least a couple of the towns of the East End from 2% to 2.5%. So there's a lot to do with closing costs that come into play. We might have low taxes, but closing costs are on the higher side.
Right.
You have to budget for that as a buyer.
Right.
And that all goes into maintaining the quality of the landscape.
Sure.
And making it to be where everybody wants to be, which is the case.
Yeah, 100%. So I think maybe one of the take-homes here for those that are out on the East End is local talent with the experience really is an advantage, a home team advantage.
Yeah, boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. That's right. That's right.
You can look up something on Zillow, you can look up things online, but it's not going to give you the information that you need.
Correct. So boots on the ground makes sense. So it was a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming so far. And I know we got snowed out last week.
My pleasure.
So, but it was great.
I'm happy we were able to do it.
Yeah. So this was really a treat to have Sarah here with us. And so with that said, we're going to take this one to a close. And we want to really thank you for your time here. And we hope that we're adding value, touching on topics that many times is talked as urban legend, but to bring in the subject matter experts to kind of clear things away and get some latest and greatest information so that homeowners or other professionals could make good, educated decisions, because like General Patton said, decision making is easy once you have all the information in front of you. So from Bayshore here at Salt and Barrel, we want to say we're signing off, and we'll see you next time talking shop in the shop.